Okay, friends, just I saved the attendance. Okay, I am going to share the screen. Okay, friends, I am going to present the PPT. Okay, friends, are you able to see my presentation? Screen is visible to all. Friends, screen is visible to all. Prajwal.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Amruta. Okay, okay. In last lecture, we came to the phase shift oscillator, and this is the last PPT slide. In yesterday lecture, we demonstrate it in all manner. Friend, here I am going to use the pen or laser point. This is the circuit diagram of the phase shift oscillator, and as the name suggested, phase shift, the phase is shifted by this oscillator means the feedback network of this oscillator. That feedback network means the ladder circuit, and that ladder circuit is the three network of the RC. Resistance and capacitors are connected in series in three network, that is network first, second, third, and each RC network as shown here, that is C1R1, C2R2 and C3R3. Each network can establish the phase shift of 60 degree, that will be noted as the phi, and the total phase shift by this three ladder circuit or the three RC circuit is 180 degree, and phase is shifted by this ladder circuit, and hence the name is given that the phase shift oscillator. We know that phase shift oscillator is the low frequency oscillator. It is used to fabricate the message on the carrier frequency in case of radio communication as well as in television communication. We know that the morphing of the carrier, morphing of message frequency on the carrier frequencies takes place, and for the message frequency, low frequency oscillator are essential, and the role of low frequency oscillator is well played by the phase shift oscillator. Here we know that in oscillator circuit the three parts are essential, three essential part. That is, one is the tank circuit or frequency determining circuit. Here the ladder circuit or the three network of the RC circuit are used as the frequency determining circuit, and that frequency is depend upon the value or the magnitude of the inductance as well as the capacitance, or the value of the resistance as well as the capacitance. And here that frequency f is equal to 1 upon 2 pi RC and a root of 6. That this formula is shown here, that is f is equal to 1 upon 2 pi RC and root of 6. This is the formula, and the frequency of this phase shift oscillator is depend upon the magnitude of R and C. That is the magnitude of R1, R2, R3, which is equal to R, and C1, C2, C3, which is equal to C, means R and C, that is on that magnitude the frequency of the phase shift oscillator will be very dependent. Okay, then second part is, that is the role of inductance and resistance, means tank circuit which was played by the ladder circuit. Second one is the transistor amplifier, and we know that the common emitter transistor amplifier mode is used. Here the potential divider is takes place by the RB and R1. See, this is the RB, and R1 will be making the role of potential divider R1 and R2. This is the collector output resistance RC, and this is the RE and CE Re and Ce is the emitter resistance as well as the emitter bypass capacitor. Again, this C1 make the role of the input capacitor, and output capacitor will be make the role of the coupling capacitor. Means the assembly which is related with the transistor amplifier, that the mode is the common emitter transistor amplifier, is also satisfied. Means the assembly of the common emitter mode is here, that is the second part is fulfilled, that is the transistor amplifier. And third is the feedback. And here the feedback is, we know that that is the original input and output, or the output of the feedback network are came in same phase. If the original input and output of the feedback network are came in same phase, then and then only Bar-Hussein criterion was satisfied. And here the ladder circuit will be used as an feedback network, and the output of this feedback network, see here, this is the output, and here we use the jumper, and with using the jumper, output is connected back to the input of the this ladder circuit. And this assembly of the ladder circuit, that is assembly of a 3 RC network, R1C1, R2C2, R3C3. Each network can inserting the phase shift of the 60 degree here, and total series phase shift is 180 degree. Means that here the 180 out of phase was seen in between the input to the feedback network and output of the feedback network, and that output of the feedback network is given to the base and emitter of the transistor amplifier in common emitter mode. And due to this, the Bar-Hussein criterion is satisfied, and we get the sustainable output or sustainable sinusoidal oscillation at the output here. These are the two terminal where the output is taken out, and here we get the oscillatory output or the sinusoidal output, that will be having the frequency f0 and f0. The magnitude of the f0 is given by the formula 1 upon 2 pi rc root of 6. And here we clearly see that that is the magnitude of the frequency, that is the frequency of that respective phase shift oscillator is depend upon the magnitude of resistance and capacitor in RC network, or the resistance capacitor in ladder circuit. It means that if we change the magnitude of the resistance and capacitance in a ladder circuit, the output frequency will be changed. Here the ladder circuit has an important role, and according to which the frequency variation at the output was will be able to change. Here the frequency of the output of the oscillator will be depend upon the magnitude of the resistance and capacitor. Okay friends, all these things are studied in last lecture. Just we go to the next point. And here in this slide we are going to study the some advantages and disadvantages of the phase shift oscillator. Then the Bar-Hussein criterion is satisfied, and sustainable continuous oscillatory motions or the oscillations are formed at the output, and that output is collected in between two respective output terminal, that will be shown clearly shown in a circuit or in a schematic diagram. The frequency of the oscillation, we know that the formula, we also derived that formula in last lecture. F0 is equal to 1 upon 2 pi RC and root 6. That formula is majorly asked for the objective. What is the output frequency of the phase shift oscillator, or how the frequency of the phase shift oscillator is depend upon the RC network. And the formula, correct formula is 1 upon 2 pi RC root 6. Friends, we have to clearly understand about the formula. We have to take we have to keep this in memory for the objective. Next, at this frequency the feedback factor, friend, in last lecture we calculate the feedback factor beta, and which its value for the phase shift oscillator is comes to be 1 upon ratio, it is ratio 1 upon 29. And we have to memorize this, we have to keep in memory, that is the value of the feedback fraction. and that feedback fraction is given by the feedback network, and feedback network was attaining the feedback fraction of beta. Beta is equal to 1 upon 90. Again, the amplifiers must be greater than 29, means the amplification input signal, that is the gain of the amplification, that is the ratio of the output amplitude was divided by input amplitude, or the output voltage divided by input voltage, that ratio is comes to be 29, means that about 29 times higher amplitude was observed, was we are getting at the output, where the sine wave was observed in between the two terminal, which was schematically shown in circuit diagram. Friend, then what are the advantages? We are came to the advantages, and there are the different advantages. The first advantage of the phase shift oscillator is the phase shift oscillator is useful over wide frequency range. Friend, we see that is from 20 hertz to about 100 kilohertz, about 100 of kilohertz. In between this wide range, one can able to fabricate the phase shift oscillator. We know that, we clearly know that phase shift oscillator is the low frequency oscillator, and its frequency range is very wide. We know that in the human audible range is 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, but here the frequency range of the phase shift oscillator, it will be finding the wide range, and it will be ranges from few hertz to several hundred kilohertz, means the in between this large wide range, the phase shift oscillator are to be designed, and this is the one of the best advantages of the advantage of the phase shift oscillator. Second, the large size inductors and transformers are not required. We know that in this phase shift oscillator, the tank circuit is not used. In tank circuit, the inductance and capacitors are parallelly fixed, and we know that inductance having the bulky component. Inductance is the bulky component. Also, it is expensive, as well as the electrolytic capacitor are also the bulky component. And these, the electrolytic capacitor as well as the inductance, large inductance, are not used in case of the phase shift oscillator, because in phase shift oscillator, frequency determining circuit is formed due to the RC network, and simply that network will be known as an the ladder circuit, and the three network of that ladder circuit is used, that is R1 C1 R2 C2 and R3 C3, that will be discussed in detail in last lecture. It means that in here in case of phase shift oscillator, the inductance and inductance is not used, and capacitor in the form of ceramic form. There are the different types of the capacitor: electrolytic capacitor, wire wound capacitor, then paper wound capacitor, ceramic capacitor. These are the different types of the capacitor. But if the electrolytic capacitor, paper capacitor, and also the wire wound capacitor are the bulky component, also the leakages of these component are very high. But in case of phase shift oscillator, we are going to use the R and C. The capacitor are used here, but ceramic type of capacitors are used, and hence the bulky component like the inductance is not used. The bulky component like the transformer are not used in case of phase shift oscillator. Hence, and this is the one of the advantage, and due to that, the some disadvantage which is related to inductance and transformer are overcome, are also here. They will be not came with related to R and C network, and this is the one of the advantage, that is the large size inductors and transformers are not required in case of phase shift oscillator. Friend, the third advantage is in the low frequency range, the large inductors are required. In low frequency range, large inductors are required in case of ELC, that is in case of tank circuit. In case of tank circuit, large inductance or large transformers are used, and due to the inductance, that is the mutual inductance, the magnetic fields, and other related problems are came with the inductance or with the coil. But here large inductors are not used in LC oscillator, and which is important, is impractical, but the frequencies are very low, about 1K, can be observed by using the RC phase shift. Friend, the one of the best characteristic or one of the best advantage of the phase shift oscillator is that the very low frequency oscillator is to be fabricated by using the phase shift oscillator, and its frequency is about the 1K, 1 kilohertz. And do why it is why it is possible? Because in case of phase shift oscillator, bulky inductor, bulky transformers are not used, and if this is possible, then the phase shift oscillator frequency will be decreased, and low frequency oscillator can be designed with using the phase shift oscillator, and that low frequency is about the 1 kilohertz. Friends, these three important advantages are related with the phase shift oscillator. Then we came to the disadvantages. We know that if these are the advantages, the phase shift oscillator has some disadvantages. We know that no any circuit in electronics is ideal. It has different merits, but with that merits, some demerits are aligned with it, and some of the disadvantages are, that is the first disadvantages of the phase shift oscillator is gain of transistor must be high and overcome the losses the RC network. Friends, gain should be high, that is the gain of the transistor must be high, which can overcome the losses of the RC network. We know that we does not using, in phase shift oscillator we does not using inductance and capacitor, but we are going to use the resistance and capacitor. It means that we can't make zero losses, because there is the presence of the resistance, there is the presence of the ceramic capacitance, and each capacitor and resistance has some losses. We did not go to zero the losses, we did not overcome all the losses. Mitrano, this is the capabilities, this is the this will be known as an the restriction, this will be limitation. आपल्याला काय करता येत नाही मित्रांनो, त्याचं जे काही ओव्हर म्हणजे लॉसेस जे आहेत, जे रेजिस्टन्स आणि कपॅसिटर मधून जे लॉसेस तयार होत आहेत, ते आपल्याला काय करता येत नाही, झिरो करता येत नाहीत, बट वी आर गोइंग टू मिनिमाइज इट. आपण काय करू शकतो मित्रांनो, माझ्यामध्ये ज्या त्रुटी आहेत त्या मला पूर्ण काढून टाकता येत नाहीत, पण मी बारकाईनं विचार केला, माझ्या स्वभावामधल्या काही त्रुटी आहेत त्या मी कमी करू शकतो. आय कॅन एबल टू मिनिमाइज इट, बट देर इज सम लिमिटेशन टू मेक इट झिरो. माझ्याकडे त्या झिरो नाही करता येत, बट मी काय करू शकतो, त्या मिनिमाइज करू शकतो. इन दॅट वे इथं काय करतो मी, मोठा इंडक्टन्स वापरून लॉसेस जास्त होत आहेत, ते ओव्हरकम करण्यापेक्षा मी काय केला, इंडक्टन्सच वापरला नाही, इंडक्टन्सच्या ऐवजी रेजिस्टन्स वापरला. रेजिस्टन्स कपॅसिटर कोणता होता, इलेक्ट्रोलायटिक कपॅसिटर होता, इलेक्ट्रोलायटिक कपॅसिटरचे लॉसेस मेजर होते. चला इलेक्ट्रोलायटिक कपॅसिटर बंद केला, मी काय यूज केलं, सिरॅमिक कपॅसिटर यूज केला, विच हॅज मिनिमाइज द लॉसेस. पण इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स मध्ये मित्रांनो त्याची इफिशियन्सी 100% करता येत नाही, पण ती काय करता येते मित्रांनो, मिनिमाइज करता येते. दिस इज द लिमिटेशन. आणि एक प्रकारची मर्यादा आहे, पण त्या मर्यादेमध्ये आपण काय करतोय, याचा जो रेजिस्टन्स आहे आणि त्याचबरोबर त्याचे जे लिकेज असणारे जे लॉसेस आहे, ते लॉसेस आपण मिनिमाइज करतोय. पण आता सुद्धा तिथं मर्यादा आहे, मी ते झिरो नाही करू शकत, बिकॉज दिस इज दी वन ऑफ द रिस्ट्रिक्शन. ती काय आहे, एक प्रकारची कायमस्वरूपी मर्यादा आहे, रिस्ट्रिक्शन आहे. आपल्याला माहित आहे चुका शून्य करता येतात, त्रुटी एरर्स जे आहेत, त्या एरर्स मात्र शून्य करता येत नाहीत. म्हणजे आपल्याला त्रुटी या कमी करता येतात, शून्य करता येत नाहीत, चुका या शून्य करता येतात. अगदी त्याच पद्धतीनं इथं आपण रेजिस्टन्स आणि कपॅसिटरचा जे लॉसेस आहेत ते आपण मिनिमाइज करू शकतो, but there is the limitation to make it zero. Okay, friends, the second disadvantage, that is the upper frequency is limited up to 10 kilohertz. Upper frequency, that is the, there is the इथं मात्र मित्रांनो मर्यादा आहे. We know that that is the human edible range, human edible frequency range is 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. But the frequency range of the phase shift oscillator is from few hertz to 10 kilohertz only. अगदी अधोरेखित करून ठेवा. कुठेतरी आपल्याला ऑब्जेक्टिव्हला विचारलं जाईल, बऱ्याचदा आपल्याला सहज विचारलं जातं, व्हॉट इज द लोअर अँड अप्पर लिमिट ऑफ द एडिबल रेंज ऑफ द ह्युमन बीइंग. बट इथं मात्र सहज प्रश्न थोडासा वेगळा विचारला जाईल. माझ्यासारखा माणूस असेल तर प्रत्येकालाच माहित आहे ह्युमन एडिबल रेंज काय आहे, 20 हर्ट्स टू 20 किलो हर्ट्स. हे न विचारता व्हॉट इज द रेंज ऑफ फेज शिफ्ट ऑसिलेटर असं जर विचारलं तर तुमचं कन्फ्युजन होईल आणि तुम्ही सगळेजण 20 हर्ट्स टू 20 किलो हर्ट्स लिहाल. ते चुकीचं आहे मित्रांनो. फ्रॉम फ्यू हर्ट्स टू 10 किलो हर्ट्स is the range of, is the frequency range of the phase shift oscillator. Friends, please keep in memory that is from few hertz to 10 kilohertz is the frequency range of the phase shift oscillator which is going to fabricate. Means the upper limit of the frequency range of the phase shift oscillator is the 10 kilohertz. Okay, and because of the impedance of the RC, you know that impedance is the one type of resistance. That is, what is the resistance of the resistance? R is the resistance of the resistance. What is the resistance of the capacitor? 1 upon C omega is the resistance of the capacitor. What is the resistance of the inductance? That is L omega is the resistance of the inductance. What it means that the impedance is the one type of resistance. It is one type of resistance. तो त्याचा भाऊ आहे, भावासारखा काम करतो. इम्पेडन्स पण विरोध करतो, रेजिस्टन्स पण विरोध करतो. इट मीन्स दॅट impedance is one type of resistance. Impedance is one type of resistance. Okay, but here impedance of the resistance network become so small that it loads the amplifier easily. Okay, and third best disadvantage is the frequency of the oscillator can be varied easily because of the it is difficult to vary the three capacitor simultaneously. Friend, we know that is the frequency of the phase shift oscillator is depend upon this formula. That is the formula is equal to output frequency is equal to 1 upon 2 pi 1 upon 2 pi RC root of 6. That is, this is the formula. Okay, if one can simply change the value of the resistance and value of the capacitance or the value of the capacitor, then we can able to vary the frequency. But there is one of the difficulty, because just go to the first before slide. This is the circuit, and in this circuit the network, that is the ladder network, and in ladder network there are the three networks are used. That is the resistance R1 C1, R2 C2, R3 C3. These are the three network, and here it is very difficult to keep the similar magnitudes of R1, R2, R3. या तिन्ही रेजिस्टन्सच्या मॅग्निट्यूड समान ठेवणं, या तिन्ही कॅपॅसिटर C1, C2, C3 च्या मॅग्निट्यूड समान ठेवणं, it is a typical task and it can increases the difficulty level. Friends, at the time of designing the phase shift oscillator, there is the typical task to adjust the resistance of R1, R2, R3 same to R. Also the capacitance C1, C2, C3 same to C. या तिघांचा तीन कॅपॅसिटरचा कॅपॅसिटर समान ठेवणं, या तीन रेजिस्टन्सचा रेजिस्टन्स समान ठेवणं. फ्रेंड, it is very typical task, and due to that typical task, this is uneasiest. It is very difficult to keep the value of three capacitors same, to keep the value of three resistances same. Friend, this is one of the disadvantages. Just I want to fabricate the phase shift oscillator with variable frequency, then it that task is become again difficult, again complicated, because at a time the value of three resistances, value of three capacitors keeping same is very difficult, and hence that is the frequency of the oscillation cannot be, the frequency of the oscillator cannot be varied easily, because it is difficult to vary three capacitors simultaneously. Friend, this is the one of the disadvantage. My friends, here we completed the phase shift oscillator in all manner. How the phase shift oscillator, that is phase shift principle, will be work. What is the role of capacitor and resistance? How the output and input is phase ladder, that is लॅडिंग सर्किट आहे इथं, अँड लॅडर सर्किट कसं म्हणून आउटपुट ऍक्ट होतं, त्याचा फ्रिक्वेन्सी फॉर्म्युला कसा ऍक्ट होतो, त्याच्या सर्किटमध्ये या तिन्हीच्या तिन्ही कंडिशन कशा इम्प्लिमेंट होतात मित्रांनो, या सगळ्या गोष्टी आपण बघितलेल्या आहेत. आणि त्याचबरोबर आपण त्याचं सर्किट ऑपरेशन बघितलं आणि त्याचे ऍडव्हान्टेजेस आणि डिसएडव्हान्टेजेस बघितले. आपल्या कोणाला काय अडचण आहे का मित्रांनो, इथं सांगा, काय अडचण आहे का इथं?
नाही सर.
फ्रेंड्स, आपला फेज शिफ्ट ऑसिलेटर लक्षात आला ना मित्रांनो? फेज शिफ्ट ऑसिलेटर लक्षात आला का? प्लीज गिव्ह मी कमेंट.
हो सर.
फ्रेंड्स, प्लीज मी गिव्ह कमेंट. काय अडचण आहे का मित्रांनो?
नाही सर.
ओके, जर काय अडचण असेल तर मला विचारा. काहीही अडचण असेल तर मला विचारा. आहे का?
नाही सर, समजलं.
ओके ओके. आता आपण काय करतोय, हा कोलपिट्स ऑसिलेटर आणि त्याच नंतरचा अविनाश सर, अविनाश ओके फ्रेंड, आपण काय करूया, इथं थांबूया. उद्या जरा सकाळीच मी लिंक टाकेन तुम्हाला, सकाळी थोडा वेळ घेईन, अर्धा पाऊण तास, पुन्हा मग अविनाश सर आणि बाकीचे घेतील. काय अडचण आहे का तुम्हाला सांगा. दीपक, सेमिनार आपण उद्या घेऊया, उद्या.
चालतं.
मी तुझा जरा टॉपिक मला टाक, ह्याच्यामध्ये व्हॉट्सअप ग्रुपला मी सगळ्यांना टाकतो, किंवा तू तुझ्याकडून टाक. सेमिनार डिलिव्हर्ड बाय, तुझं नेम टाक, टॉपिक, टॉपिकचं नेम टाक आणि डेट उद्याची टाक, व्हॉट्सअप ग्रुपला टाक. आणखी तुझ्या बरोबर कोण घेणार आहे सेमिनार? अरे आणखीन कोण
मी
घेणार
घेणार
आहे?
आहे. मी घेणार आहे.
धनश्री, तुझी झाली का सगळी
हा.
तयारी?
परवा दिवशी घेऊ का सर मी?
काही हरकत नाही, परवा दिवशी घे. दीपक,
हा,
तुझी झाली
चालेल.
का राजा सगळी तयारी?
झाली झाली.
तुझी काय
मी
अडचण आहे
पॉइंटचं
म्हणजे?
नाव सांगते सर.
धनश्री, तुझं काय अडचण आहे?
पीपीटी तयार करायची थोडीशी राहिल्या,
आज
ती
कर की,
करते.
आज कर की, कशाला उगाच त्याला वेळ घालवत. उद्या झाले तर दोघांची
बरं.
घेऊया आपण. हा
हा, चालेल.
ओके. आणि बिनधास्त सांगायचं, मला अडचण आहे, अमक आहे, तमक आहे. हा
हा.
ओके. सगळ्यांनी अटेंडन्स टाका, अटेंडन्स. प्लीज सबमिट अटेंडन्स इन चॅट बॉक्स. Friends, please submit attendance in chat box. शेडजी आहेत तिथे असणार का? Friends, please submit attendance in chat box. साक्षी साक्षी मॅडम,
हा सर,
कधी घेताय तुम्ही सेमिनार?
घेतो 2-3 दिवसात.
2-3 दिवसात?
हा, धनश्रीचं ते होऊ दे, घेते मग.
ओके 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 ओके, धनश्रीचं झालं की घेऊया. झालं.
हा.
कुठे आहात? हा, तिथंच थांबा. मी आलो 5 मिनिटात. ओके 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 ओके. Okay, friends, you all submitted the attendance. Please give response. विजय, श्वेता, अनिकेत, प्रतीक्षा, प्रज्वल, अमृता, ऐश्वर्या, दीपक, श्रुती, धनश्री, all you submitted the attendance.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay,
Yes, sir.
okay. I am submitting. Saving chat box. Thank you. Have a nice day. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you. I'm ending the meeting. I end the meeting.
सर.
Okay.
सर,
बोल. Okay.
आणि करा सर.
हा, yes, yes, yes. Okay. हो, नमस्ते. एकच मिनिट बाळा. हो हो हो, एक्झामला पण झालेली सीटच्या. अगदी बरोबर. बाकी काय नाही. रजा, कोण आले? मैत्रीण आहे का? कोण आले? अच्छा अच्छा. एक लेक्चर होतं आत्ताच, संपलं ते. आता एक्झाम बघूया काय करतायत ते.